We might have a few people joining us a little bit late. So yeah, thanks for turning on the recording and welcome. Thank you for joining our webinar on evolving the data professional in an AI-driven world. Um, my name is Matt Rollins, and I am going to be your host for today's session. Um, and actually, I'm privileged that I get to speak to a lot of organizational leaders, a lot of data experts. And I think one of the most persistent challenges that I see when I'm talking to these organizations is organizations being data rich, but insight poor. We've seen a lot of organizations invest heavily in the systems that collect vast amount of data, but yet somehow we struggle to turn them into timely strategic decisions, into information that we can use to help support those decisions. So I am pleased to say that I am joined by my colleagues Michael Lafferty and Shirag Swaley. We were, unfortunately, they've been called away due to a last minute family emergency. We were going to be joined by Baz Ward from Arriva to talk about some of the things that he has done there. However, Michael and the team has worked closely with Baz. So we're going to try and talk through some of the fantastic things that he's done. I'm sure we won't do it as much justice as it deserves, but we'll get Michael doing his best to cover off the points that he was going to cover. So on that note, Michael, I'm going to come across to you to start with. So when we talk about poor data utilization, what does that actually look like for a business leader on a day-to-day basis?
Thanks, Matt, and good afternoon, everybody. I guess it really boils down to this common frustration that we see a lot, actually. Businesses are spending on sophisticated data systems, as you said, Matt. Yet when it comes down to the critical moments, leaders are still kind of relying on quite often on gut instinct because they can't always get to the insights they need. And I guess on a day-to-day basis, this can kind of manifest itself in particularly in three painful ways. First, and we see it ourselves, I think you have an endless spreadsheet cycle. You've got highly paid teams across the business spending hours manually pulling data, quite often into their own personal Excel files. Everyone ends up with a slightly different version of the truth, and quite a significant amount of effort is wasted on low value, repetitive admin instead of actual analysis. Second, you hit the data silos problem. Your sales data sits in one system, marketing in another, operations in a third, perhaps, for example. Because these systems don't talk to each other, you never get that single unified view of your customer or your business performance. You're always looking at a fragmented picture. And finally, there's the problem of delayed insights. By the time a report is manually compiled, checked, and then presented to decision makers, the information is often old. So the opportunity to act has already passed. You're effectively driving the business by looking in the rearview mirror.
Thanks, Michael. I mean, being an accountant at heart, I think the loveless of spreadsheet is strong. It's strong with me. But yeah, I suppose that picture of siloed data and outdated spreadsheets is one that I'm sure many of the people on the call will probably recognize. Which is probably gives us a good chance to do our first poll. So Joe, when you get a second, if you could pop that up. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you in terms of what is your organization's biggest frustration regarding data. So you've got a couple of options there, and hopefully we'll get a good idea in terms of where people feel those pain points are. So we're coming through now. I will end the poll in a second, but I can see that a large 50% of the are talking about that manual reporting. endless
Mm.
spreadsheets, 25% data silos, and inconsistent versions of the truth. And I will end the poll there so that hopefully you can all see the results. I believe you can hopefully all see those results now. So as you can see, yeah, manual reporting, spreadsheets, 62% in the end there. So very large chunk can resonate with that problem. Data silos, the second largest, 26%. Moving on to insights arriving too late, and the lack of the right skills to use the data we have. So all really interesting there, but certainly that endless spreadsheet is something that most people are linking onto.
That's really interesting from our audience, Matt. That's kind of really in tune what we want to talk about today, actually. So hopefully this will be quite valuable for a lot of people.
Definitely, yeah. Which actually brings us on to perhaps the first section, I guess, of the webinar. And this is going to focus on the evolution. So from a data technician to a business strategist. Obviously, the core topic is about how the role of that data professional is changing, and it's changing to solve the problem that we've actually just talked about. The problem that fact that actually we've got these endless spreadsheets, we've got these siloed data. So now, Shirag, if you don't mind, I'll come over to you. How would you describe the fundamental shift? And what is the difference between, let's say, a data analyst from 5 years ago,
Mhm.
and the AI
Yeah,
data-driven professional that we have today?
yeah. I think. Well, there is a fundamental shift, and I think lots is changing as well right now, especially in the AI landscape. I think when I think about the traditional analyst, what they have, and obviously referring to it as a data technician, data analyst, we're thinking that maybe they'll be in the background and they're just churning out the data to try and create reports, right? They're trying to do that on a regular basis. So building reports and honing in on what's happened, and they're just trying to get that very quickly. And really, the value is based on the technical accuracy that they're sort of building out, the speed of delivery. But just it's very much in the moment, just trying to get what you can from that. Someone's asked for this dashboard, someone's asked for that, and give that. But I think more and more businesses, and as now, if you think about it right now, we have more and more access to data. Not just the data analyst, but anyone working anywhere, they have more access to data personally, and what that means is, people want to get more useful insights from that. So not just understanding what's happened, why has it happened, and also maybe future projecting what could happen as a result, what could we do from here. So there's more to it than, so moving on from just the analyst to being a strategist. I feel the role's changing because they're more empowered, they've got more tools to be able to do that. So obviously AI tools can help a lot with people to be able to do that. But I also think one other thing which I think analysts really should be doing, or you see that transition, is the whole idea of storytelling. And it's not just about, okay, here's a data set and this is what we found, but what story does it tell? Where does it fit into the narrative of what we're trying to do and where we're moving on to things? So I would say probably those are where we're moving on. So I would say I would call them more a strategist now rather than purely just an analyst doing stuff. But I also feel that it's democratized now, that not just people who have the role called analysts, but anyone now who's got access to AI tools and has access to data can do more with data.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense, and I suppose that is a crucial sort of distinction. So moving away from reporting past information to actually helping the business make decisions and predicting the future. And I think this is actually where we had a lovely example from an apprentice of ours. So Michael, we've talked a little bit about the theory. I was hoping you could bring to life an example from the apprentice, who's walked into a business and actually fixed sort of this poor data utilization problem. What does that transformation look like on the ground?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think we've got to a great example from one of our recent graduates, Baz Ward, who works at Arriva, the transport company. And it's unfortunate he couldn't make it today because I know he was really keen to talk about some of the exciting things he's done. But I know Baz a little bit, and I know some of the work he's done. So, for example, one of the problems that Baz faced was that Arriva operates across multiple European countries, Italy and Spain, for example, but many more as well. The central team needed to report on safety and performance KPIs for all of those countries. But the reality was a maze of spreadsheets. Every month, they were manually chasing data from 7 different countries, all in different formats. So, as you can imagine, it was slow, prone to broken formula, and meant the team spent a lot of their time just fixing the data rather than analyzing it. So, to solve this, Baz, who joined Arriva as an apprentice, took ownership of the problem, which was fantastic initiative. And he didn't just make a chart either. He built a fully automated Power BI environment. So he used tools like Power Query to automate the cleansing process. So instead of a person manually checking dates and local formats, etc., as they'd had to previously, the system did it instantly. He created effectively a single source of truth that consolidated all of those different country reports into one. So the result was that he replaced a fragile manual reporting process with a robust automated dashboard that actually goes right up to the board as well. The so what here is huge, Matt. It freed up the team from days of admin every month. So instead of asking, is this data right? They could finally ask, what is this data telling us about safety trends? That is a great example of a shift from technician or analyst to strategist. So actually, let me give you a specific example of that strategist mindset that Baz actually adopted and demonstrated on several occasions. So again, on the apprenticeship, he looked at safety data regarding customer insights and road accidents. Somebody who was just a simple technician or analyst might have just reported the monthly figures. So, for example, incidents are up 5%. But instead of doing that, Baz looked at it more strategically and ran a regression analysis to test a hypothesis. So he found an important correlation between customer incidents and accidents, basically proving that difficult passenger interactions were likely distracting drivers and causing accidents. And he also identified that autumn was a peak season for this specific trend. So by doing that, he moved the conversation from reporting what happened to recommending where to focus driver training support. That is the difference between an apprentice who just kind of works with Excel and one who actually drives business value.
That's really interesting. I love that. Yeah, it's amazing to see how a real world example likes that works like that. It brings it to life in terms of understanding. Yeah, it's actually something distracting the drivers. That's good. I like that. Um, so I suppose it does show that an apprentice isn't just there to learn. They can, in this example, they can rebuild the whole operational infrastructure. Um, I know that Baz was also looking to future technologies as well. Where does a learner like that go next once they've mastered those basics?
Yeah, well, that's the exciting part, Matt. And I know Baz is disappointed to not be here with us to talk about this because I know this was something that he was really focusing on right now in his role. So once you remove the manual drudgery, as it were, you create space for innovation. So Baz is now looking into agentic AI, moving from dashboards that just show you a problem to AI agents that can actively suggest solutions or alert managers automatically. So I'd say that's the trajectory. You start by fixing the basics, and then you end up driving AI innovation.
No, thank you, Michael. And yeah, I think agentic AI is one of those things that I need to learn how to say better as well. I always manage to get trip up when I talk about agentic AI. But that vision of agentic AI really shows how far the role is evolving. Um, Shrag, at this point, perhaps good to bring you in.
Mhm.
So building on that future-facing example,
Yeah.
what are the core practical AI native skills that a modern data professional must have in their toolkit today?
Yeah, if you think about data professionals, obviously, when people start out in that learner journey, they might start out with basic tools. Maybe they're using things like Excel, and then they're moving on to Power BI and all of that. And then they start using some more sophisticated tools like things like Python, for example, and all of that, which can start giving them more power to do stuff. Michael was mentioning some of the stuff Pat has tried around, analysis, detailed analysis, and all of that. And you start doing that with tools like Python. But I think it's not just about Python itself. There's more to it. So there's the actual technical tools, and I think things like AI helps a lot because now, as a data professional, you don't need to know very complex code because you can work together with an AI to be able to give you the ability to craft something that's quite complicated. So you drive that. So part of it is almost setting the intention. Where do I want to take this? And so I think this is where they talk a lot about prompt engineering, but the ability to be able to describe what you want from an AI is effectively how I look at it. And it's changed a lot. There were times before when you had to really craft and you have to know how to prompt engineer, but now I think it's all about natural language. So I think a skill for a data analyst is to be able to understand, do I have any AI-enabled features? So Baz at the moment is looking at agentic AI. Well, what can I do? How can I get it to do what I need? And that needs direction. That going back to the strategist. As a strategist, I'm driving that to then say, well, this is what I want of it. So it needs a little bit of an understanding of large language models and what they could potentially do, where they can come in, and how do I take on the strategist hat to then say, how will this technology help me in terms of doing this kind of analysis? But ultimately, you know, uh, we always say this, more than the data itself, it's the stories that influence. So advanced storytelling is probably where I would say is a key skill, because you could then craft the messaging. You can then say, this is what we find. And I think, Michael, you mentioned some really useful insights, right? So if you're then saying an issue in a bus can affect the anxiety of a driver, and then it links to certain things and seasons, isn't that incredible insight to be able to get? But is that easy to get just from looking at glancing over data? You have to hone in and pick that out. And sometimes it takes creativity to then say, what questions do I want? What do I want to drive at? Being open to the fact that could be something we've never even considered. And I think that's where, when you think about AI, because you have the ability for this AI to come in and help you collaboratively in that thinking. So I'd say those Matt, those are probably the sets of different skill set. So it's not just a technical skill set, but the ability to be able to intentionally work with AI to be able to get what you want. And combined with the technical skill set, you can do a lot of stuff to do this storytelling, as we're calling it.
Thank you. That's really useful. And probably, well, next point to do our next poll at that point. So, Joel, if you're able to, would you be able to bring up the next poll there? Look at that. So our second poll then is looking at, when it comes to bringing in data talent with strong AI skills, what is the main priority for your organization right now? And I guess we are hoping that B and C are a nice trend that comes through. Otherwise, we might be in the wrong organization. And it's good to see that we are seeing that a little bit. So yeah, so numbers coming through there. 81% there, upskilling, reskilling existing employees, which obviously is really, really important. 5% building a pipeline via apprenticeships and graduate schemes. And I think it'll be interesting to get your opinions, Michael and Chirag, later of the overlap, perhaps, of those two there. Hiring experienced talent externally, only 2%. And then a few proportion in terms of we haven't started planning yet. So definitely the largest segment there is looking to upskill and reskill those existing employees. And I think that's even more important in today's world. You know that if you've got good employees, they've got the right work ethic. Actually reskilling them, enabling them to do additional tasks is really important. Um, yes, so I suppose if we think about building that talent pipeline and the next steps, um, the path forward is going to require a blend of core data skills and these new AI native skills. So, Michael, bearing in mind the poll there, looking at upskilling our existing staff members, um, brings back to the business leaders in our audience. Based on everything we've discussed, what are the practical pathways for them to build this crucial talent within their organization?
Okay, thanks, Matt. Yeah, I think hopefully that poll shows that we're actually probably on topic here and maybe going to help some people who perhaps don't know too much about apprenticeships to kind of have a few takeaways as well. So when you boil it down, leaders really only have a few levers that they can pull here. You can hire experienced talent from the outside, and it doesn't look like that's a viable route for too many people. Um, and you can try to run ad hoc upskilling for your current team, or you can build a structured long-term pipeline through apprenticeships. So let's kind of just unpack those a little bit. I'd say the real challenge with the buy strategy, so hiring externally, is that everyone is fishing in the same, usually very small pond as well at the moment. So experienced data professionals who also have valuable AI skills are scarce, and consequently they're expensive as well. So this is why I guess you and I and Chirag see the apprenticeship route as a strategic solution, and we see that for three key reasons. I'd say first, an apprentice isn't just learning abstract theory; they're learning to apply relevant skills to their actual business and their business's data and the specific problems that that business has from day to day. We saw this perfectly with the examples from Baz at Arriva. He didn't just learn Power BI in a vacuum. He learned how to apply it to Arriva's specific cross-border reporting challenges. So that deep contextualized knowledge is something you can't buy off the shelf and is not always easy to cover if you're upskilling people either. Second, about apprenticeships, it's future proofing, I'd say as well. And as Chirag described, the skill set is changing fast. Our curriculum is designed specifically to build that blended profile. So creating the technical analyst who is also a data storyteller and an AI navigator. So you're effectively building the talent the future market needs inside your own walls as well. And finally, of course, there's return on investment. Utilizing the apprenticeship levy, if a company pays it, obviously makes this a cost-effective training route. But the real return is actually the value of the work that apprentices deliver. When an apprentice solves an expensive problem like poor data utilization, saving the business days of manual work every month, the apprenticeship program pays for itself many times over. So I'd say those are the main reasons and thoughts on the kind of recruitment challenges, Matt.
Thank you, Michael. And a lot of people as well don't realize that apprenticeships are available for existing staff. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes in the recent budget in terms of apprenticeship funding. They've actually increased that for SMEs so that SME organizations now don't have to pay a contribution up to the age of 25. But what that does is people see that 25 and see that as a barrier. And it's not a barrier. Actually, apprenticeships can be used to upskill anybody. We could put yourself on an apprenticeship, Michael, if we wanted to. But there are additional incentives for supporting younger apprentices. I'm sure you would get those incentives too, Michael. Um, so I suppose at this point, thank you, Michael and Chirag, firstly for sharing some of your insights. It's been really valuable. Um, And at this point, I suppose we can open the floor to any questions. So there is a Q&A panel there. Um, and if anybody does have any questions through anything we've gone through, apprenticeships or training, then we'd be more than happy to answer.
Yeah, and Matt, well, there are people, asking any questions. Just to echo what Michael said, I think there's those people who are upskilling to become, data professionals. They really get into data. But I think, just the way at some point we say everyone's job is sales because everyone you need to influence, you need to be able to talk to people and all of that. Similarly, I think we are in a world where everyone has some element of data to themselves. So I think that's one of the things to understand. So whoever people who are coming on here is to think about, well, how do I stay relevant in today's changing landscape of having more and more data, and how do I use that from an insights perspective? Sometimes even your personal life, for example. So I think putting that lens on is very important, and obviously that links to the idea of how do I upskill, whatever that means for me. I think it's an important question for us to all consider.
Thank you. We just had one question come through, Michael, which if I can ask yourself. So, obviously, we talked a little bit about apprenticeships, but somebody's asked whether or not there's the ability to upskill people without using apprenticeships.
Yeah, I would say there is Matt. There's probably quite a number of options, and different routes might appeal to different people. There are some organizations, universities amongst them actually run summer camps, for example. So several weeks long summer camps, and some of those are really good, and they kind of just start to delve into data science as well. So that's one route. I'd say another potential route is there are some great learning tools out there. And as you know, Matt, we actually use some of those with our apprentices. One of the best ones I would say is Data Camp. Data Camp requires a subscription. Subscription will get you 12 months of access to Data Camp and all of its learning and all of its courses. But it's actually quite a small investment to make if you think the difference it could make to somebody's future. And what I like about Data Camp is it covers all of the main tools and platforms that data analysts typically use. So if you want to start with the ground roots, for example, and brush up on your Excel skills, Data Camp has some great courses on that, and the content is really engaging as well. But then also, if you want to start to learn about AI agents and agentic, then that would be on there as well. So you could kind of create your own playlist of learning depending on what your needs are, I'd say.
Yeah, thank you. Um, yeah, and I think it's worth saying as well that Kaplan offer a range of commercial and also apprenticeships. So of course, we'll always be happy to talk to you. Got to mention that as well. Next question that's come in is how long is a typical upskilling of apprenticeships? How much time out the business is it, and what's the cost?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one.
Yeah.
So a typical upskilling apprenticeship in data analysis, so a level 4 apprenticeship, for example, might take up to maybe 18 months. But that time period could be a little bit variable actually, Matt, because it depends on the individual circumstances of the apprentice as well. So if that apprentice comes in with some strong foundational skills already, then the duration of the program is likely to be a bit shorter to recognize the prior learning that they've got already. How much time out of the business is it, and the cost? Well, how much time out of the business is a really good question, Gemma. So thanks for raising that. When you have an apprentice, and for those of us that are managers on the call here, and you're overseeing and supervising somebody who is an apprentice, the best apprenticeships are those where the individuals actually get the time and the support that they need. So there is a commitment there. There is generally very little or no cost commitment other than paying the apprentice's wage. Real commitment, though, is the time commitment because apprentices need time to do their studies. So typically, we could be looking at around about a day a week for apprentices to complete their studies. but most training providers kind of tend to do that quite flexibly as well. So being able to work for the business and do the job marries up well with being able to do the learning as well. But the learning is essential. Nobody's going to progress and develop if they don't get their time to learn and then consolidate the things that their training providers teach them as well. And consolidating quite often means going back into the workplace, taking the things they've learned and actually finding projects and tasks to apply those that knowledge that they've learned to develop the skills. So that's typically costs in terms of time and money.
Yeah, and I suppose it is worth mentioning there just some of those incentives for the under 25. So from a cost perspective, if you've got an under 25 that is on an apprenticeship, you don't actually pay the national insurance, the employer's national insurance. So that is 15% of their wages, which is saved. And I guess also touching on in terms of those number of hours and the time out of the business. Um, if we look at our data analyst apprenticeship as an example, there's actually 22 days over that 18 months that they would be out of the business. So if you average that out, that's actually between 2 and 3 hours a week. That application in the workplace is key. And we call it off the job learning, but actually the fantastic thing about apprenticeships is that you are learning to do your actual job. You're taking that knowledge and applying it and getting support from your manager, getting support from the wider business. And that learning time is part of the apprenticeship learning journey as well.
Yeah, and Matt, you mentioned about me doing an apprenticeship. You know what? I really wish I could. As an individual, I mean, it would be great to have that dedicated time that I could put towards my studies, learning a topic that I was really excited about, and having that time. You working that out with your team. Yep, that's your time to learn, to grow, to develop, and ultimately to achieve and get the qualification as well.
Thank you. We do have one other question that's just come in. Shrag, I think you've written a response to it, but I will ask you in person as well. So, what are some of the tools, educational material, and systems that you would recommend for people to get familiar with?
Yeah,
Obviously,
I've
you
done.
mentioned Python, but yeah, it'd be good to get some others.
Yeah, I mentioned a few things. So obviously, Michael was mentioning some platforms that you've got. What you want is you want hands-on stuff, right? Academic knowledge, just looking at there's lots of content everywhere, but what you want is the ability to be able to do some stuff with that. So obviously, people start off with understanding of Excel, but the reason we mention Excel because you're like, oh, Excel is basic spreadsheets, but if you look at Excel now with Microsoft 365, you have the ability to use Python within Excel. So you have the ability to do advanced data analytics within that, including, statistics and all of that. So you could use something like that, or you could use, if you're doing dashboards, something like Power BI, Tableau, or equivalent. There's lots of them. You're not tied down. There's so many different technologies. Obviously, from a database perspective, understanding SQL and understanding database modeling could be helpful. AI skills, we've mentioned, and then sort of depending on where you're going. If you're going down the data science route, you'd continue, using Python or R to be able to do some more advanced analysis. If you're then becoming like going down the data engineer route, then you might look at other technologies and all of that as well. But you always sort of start with a foundational, and the nice thing is you can then progress to what you want. So yeah, so those I would say those are the technologies at the moment.
Mm. Yeah, and Chirag, I just draw everybody's attention to um, we're publishing a white paper shortly about skills gaps as well, and we've done this on the back of some interviews with learners and also their employers as well. And the clear things that came out of the research that we did were two areas where people wanted and needed to develop their skills, and those two things were Excel and AI. So we're looking forward to that white paper going live as well soon.
No,
Yeah,
no,
and
yeah.
just to add, Michael, as well, the comment from, in it's talking about someone who's an apprentice, right? Mentioning it's hard to balance. I'm doing the apprenticeships currently and trying to fast track as I'm able to do the AI engineer one after that. I mean, that's great, right? You can see progression paths, right? It's not about just, oh, you've done something and that's it, because it's a changing landscape. It'll keep evolving. But again, the mention is that the DA1 is great for the starting point because you get those foundational Python data science skills. But again, there's a fine balance, and I think part of it is being intentional. What skill do I want to develop? I think the most important thing though is how can I practically build these skills? I know it's easy to get into learning something and then think academic. I want to learn this concept. Think, how can I solve problems? Think back to the example that Michael said around BAS. And one of the things I would encourage people, so if you've not come across Kaggle, Kaggle has things like data sets, so you can go in and they provide that, where they're real world data sets where people go and try and solve the problems using data analysis. So that could be something that you can go and look at and say, can I do something like this? Focus on practical problem solving skills, and I think that will take you far.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a excuse me, there's a really great comment there from Sarah, and thanks for mentioning it. Balancing everything is really hard. We completely understand that, Sarah, as well. And but my suggestion would be that, it's not just yourself that's committed to the apprenticeship program you're doing, but it's your employer that's committed to supporting you through it as well. So I would say, make sure that you get the time and the support that you need. Insist on it if you need to from your employer, because it's a three-way partnership. It's your employer, it's your training provider, and it's yourself, the individual apprentice as well. And if everybody's committed to doing it, everybody needs to play their part and support you.
Definitely, yeah. I was just going to say a very similar thing. Obviously, you said they're trying to fast track it. It shows that apprenticeships are tough. They're not easy. People think that they're sort of an easy option, but they're definitely not. And employees and employers need to make sure that they are fully on board with those apprenticeships, because um, it is a fantastic tool. But at the same time, you working a full-time job and you're also then doing a full-time course. Most people are used to going to college or university where you can concentrate 100% on learning. So it's a tough balance for everyone, and that's why the government dictates that time required per week.
Mm.
It's our responsibility to vet the employers as much as we vet the individual apprentices.
Had another question come in as well, Matt. Some great questions actually from our audience. Gemma said, for an individual that is using advanced Excel, what which course would be good? First start would be a good first start to develop data and AI skills. I think we know the answer to that question. There's probably several, but I can tell you the ones that we prefer. When somebody starts off an apprenticeship with us, we kind of do the foundational Excel learning, and we make sure everybody's up to a particular standard. And that standard we aim for, first of all, is a Microsoft Office specialist. So everybody gets that global certification as well, which is a nice thing to have to put onto your CV. But also after that, our data analysts do data analysis and visualization with Excel, which is a course that we run that really starts to unpack what it means to be a data analyst, but it unpacks it in terms of using AI as the tool to help people to learn. And that's where we first start diving into the advanced areas of Excel as well, such as advanced functions, Power Pivot, Power Query, many other tools as well. And so data analysis and visualization with Excel. Obviously, we use it with all our data analysts, but it's there available for other people to have a look at if they want to. Logical operations, I think, have that course.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're perhaps at the end of the questions there. So thank you for everybody who has contributed towards those questions. And again, thank you, Joel, for sorting out the polls and things in the background and for bringing up the QR code for feedback. Thank you to Michael, Shirag, and yeah, we hope that we've given you some insights there today. By all means, if you have any questions afterwards, then feel free to reach out to us. But I'm wearing a Christmas jumper, so I feel that I could say it. We hope that you all have a lovely break, Christmas and New Year, and look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.